I recently came back from a trip to Florida, and needless to say it was a little bit warmer down there than it is up here. That was a lot of driving though. We turned an oil change. It was about 3,000 miles or 5,000 kilometers between driving all the way down there, touring around and coming back again. Had a great time with Randy and his family, and enjoyed some not sub-zero temperatures. That was fun while it lasted. But it was time to get back in the shop. This here is the Massey Ferguson 10 that we acquired for my son last year, and this is going to be his trail machine. It's got a Peerless 2300 transaxle, and it came to us with that clone engine in it that we featured in a couple of videos. That was in really bad shape when we got it, and silicone everywhere, and the valve train was pretty much junk. And that turned into a low buck fix and flip. We sold that engine. My son wasn't really interested in it. Decided to use his go-kart engine, and we were all good to go on that thing. I'll get back to the engine in a minute. He's just pulled the engine out of it, and he's put in a diesel. That's right, folks. Recently I picked up a little 6-horse diesel. I'll show you in a minute. The ad said it was a 10-horse, and I drove all the way out there, and I got there and I saw that it wasn't a 10-horse. There's no markings left on the engine, but it is physically a little bit smaller than the 10-horse diesel we're all used to. So once I figured it for a 6-horse, I thought to myself, okay, well, I can either drive all the way back completely empty-handed, or I can offer him a reduced price, given the fact that it's not a 10-horse, and figure out what to do with it. Well, we figured out what to do with it, and the answer is Garry is going to be running diesel on the trails too. What do you think of that action?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. There you go. Semi-enthusiastic, he's too busy working on his junk, hell yeah. Okay, so what we're doing here is we've got the engine in position, and we're just kind of making some marks on the frame to figure out where we got to drill the holes. This is after me going through great lengths to get a keyway and shaft adaptation happening on the engine. I might go into that in a little more detail later, but 7/8 shaft, 1-inch clutch. Anywho, there it is. Now the engine hangs out a little bit more on this side according to where the clutch is, so we're going to have to zap a piece of angle iron to the frame and drill through that for the motor mount bolt holes on this side. So there's the engine. It has no markings on it. The shroud's been painted over. There's no tags to be seen. But it is, from everything I can ascertain, a 6-horsepower Yanmar clone, and it fits in there with plenty of room to spare. As you can see, we fitted a centrifugal clutch to it, and that took some doing. That's something I've always wanted to try doing. A centrifugal clutch on a trail tractor is something that I've been wanting to do for a while, and Garry agreed to be my guinea pig for this little experiment. Now, basically the way a centrifugal clutch works, if you're not familiar, is it's got a couple of spring-loaded shoes in it and the clutch bell. The way it works is that at idle, the shoes are disengaged. It's kind of the opposite of a drum brake. As the engine speeds up, the springs expand. It allows the shoes to come into contact with the drum and starts driving the drum in the outer half, and in this case the pulley, although in some cases a sprocket. There are a couple of downfalls to the thought of a centrifugal clutch on a trail tractor. One of those being that engine braking is going to be minimized because as engine RPM drops, the shoes disengage. So there's no engine braking to be had really that I can foresee. Also, climbing slowly up an incline or an obstacle in much the same vein, doing it basically at idle and just letting it chug up also isn't going to happen because you have to apply some throttle to engage the shoes. With that being said, this is going to be an interesting experiment. My son's looking forward to trying it. I'm not quite done dealing with that shaft yet, but as you can see by the tapered point, it was a tapered shaft. This engine did have generator duty at some point in its life. And the shaft measured 7/8 along the straight part of it. That is a 1-inch centrifugal clutch, and what I had to do was basically weld a strip of 16 gauge steel around it, 16 gauge being awfully close to a 1/16 of an inch to make up the difference, so I could fit a 1-inch clutch on. I've had to cut a keyway in there, and I'm still working on that. It's not complete yet, but it was enough that we could get the clutch on so that we could, you know, get the belt aligned and figure out where the engine had to bolt down. You can see that we've got a belt tensioner pulley set up there. That pulley was original to this tractor, serving a, well, kind of a different purpose. And all we did was steal a page from the Sears Suburbans and other similar tractors that have a slotted hole so that you can manually adjust the belt tension and leave the pulley bolted down. So with this footboard in the way, you can't see much, but I think you get the idea. You've got the belt coming off the centrifugal clutch, going through that tensioner. I'll just tuck in here a little bit so that you can kind of see. And then going to the factory pulley on the transaxle. This machine isn't going to be very fast, and it doesn't need to be. It's just going to be running the trails. This is sort of the under hood view, as it were. Not much to be seen here because a lot still needs to be done. In this space here, we're going to put a fuel cell, and in that space here, we're going to put the battery. And at this point, we've got a couple of wires sticking out of the engine there and no charging system by the looks of it. So I'm going to try and use the regulator rectifier from one of my old Honda setups because they seem to work fairly well, and we'll get that rigged up. Obviously we need to fabricate some sort of muffler situation because there is none whatsoever, and go from there. Nice thing about this air box is it does have that nipple on the air inlet, which lends itself well to a snorkel, so I think we're going to do something like that too. As you can see, the engine came to me with no pull start, and frankly we're not all that concerned about it. Does it run yet? Yes. Does it drive? We don't know. We're going to save the running and driving for after Garry has managed to get all the controls hooked up and we've put together an exhaust for it, and he can do a test drive and a shakedown run and see what this thing is going to need to consider it ready to hit the trails. So stay tuned for that. Thank you folks once again for tuning into Sprocket's Garage on YouTube, and until next time, take care of yourselves.